All right, so first what I want to do with you is review the different types of lines that there are, because these are what you're going to be using to add inside of your leaf. So our first line is a straight line. We also talked about curved lines. There are wavy lines, broken lines. Let me see, on the road. And when you were little, you would trace those to learn how to draw and write letters. Zigzag lines we use for things like shark teeth, monster teeth, mountains. Curly lines you would use if you were drawing a roller coaster or maybe someone's hair. I used to say telephone cords. Do you guys know what the curly telephone cords even were anymore? We also have our dotted lines, or anything that's in a row like this. Any kind of picture or symbol, hearts, stars, arrows. Bumpy lines. These always remind me of teeth. If you were drawing like a person or a skeleton with their teeth closed, they can go in this direction. They can also go in this direction. So they're curved on the one end and pointy on the other end. And then spiral, these swirls that you can either start on the outside, really big, and then instead of closing the circle, you just scoot inside of the circle and you keep going around and around and around. Or you can start small and let it grow big, where instead of closing the circle, you go past it. And bigger and bigger and bigger. And let's not forget that you can draw these lines in different directions. So if I spun my paper, instead of these lines being laying down, sleeping, horizontal lines, if I turn in this line in this direction, the lines can now actually be in the vertical direction, right? Lines can be drawn in any direction or on a diagonal, right? Diagonal lines, like what we did on our leaf last week with the veins. Okay, so let's use these lines to decorate inside of our leaf. So what you see here is the next step in our project before we put color on it. So maybe last week you were using a black crayon, and this is a crayon with all of the lines already filled in with my black crayon. This one is where I was using a Sharpie, and I do remember seeing a couple of you using a black Sharpie marker. So this leaf, I'm going to do lines with a black Sharpie. And this one is just a regular black marker that I did for this leaf. And we talked about how only certain supplies will work over top of the black marker. So let's start with a Sharpie marker. And I'm just going to copy pretty much what I did here. I'm going to be looking at the lines paper. Maybe you want to go back in the video, and when you see this, press pause on top of it so that you can copy the lines that you see. And what you're going to do is take one section at a time, and you're going to fill in by practicing repeating a certain line over and over and over again inside of a section. If you happen to draw your veins where you had a lot of veins and they're very skinny, you're only going to be able to practice a line one time in each place, and you'll repeat it over and over again, and that is completely fine. So now my next empty section, I'm going to try the zigzag line, or zigzaggy mountain line. And I'm just going to draw it and repeat it as many times as I can. It may be tricky trying to draw that on a diagonal, so don't drive yourself crazy. Turn your paper and draw it in a comfortable way. Here I'm going to draw the curly line. Just because I'm doing it in this order, does that mean you have to do it in the same order? No. You can pick whatever you want to go wherever you want. And now the regular marker. On the leaf where I use the black marker, I'm going to now fill in each separate section with a crayon. So I went through my crayons and I picked out colors that I normally see leaves in autumn. So I'm going to begin to take one color at a time. I can do it in any order I want, or I can do it in an order of what that makes sense to me. And I'm just going to fill in each section with crayon. Now there's a reason why I chose crayon for this one, and that is because watercolors would not work well over top of black marker because some smearing of the black will occur on your leaf. So the only safe bet really to use is crayons over top of this. For this leaf, this is the one where I use the Sharpie marker, and it's stinky and permanent, so those are the bad things, but the good things, we can use any of these art supplies along with it. You can use marker on top of it and no smearing will happen with the black, which is what I'm going to use. Or you can use crayon still, or you can get it wet with watercolor over top of it and nothing will happen with the black. The black marker will not smear. So that's why I included this as a choice if you were safe with it. Okay, the third way that we can do this is with the watercolor. This is going to be the most fun way if you chose to do this. And this will work with crayon like I used here, or Sharpie marker. It will not work with a regular black marker because as soon as that gets wet, it will cause the black to smear and bleed on the paper. So I'm getting my paintbrush nice and wet. I don't really need a napkin to dry anything off as long as I can do this, what I'm doing with my paintbrush right now. And then I always will just wake up the color that I need to use a little bit. If you're using watercolors at home today, you've used them before, you're familiar with your little set of watercolors, and I'm just waking them up with water. Some artists like to wake all of their colors up. I only wake up the ones as I use them. Try to make them last as long as I can, because I may not use every single color today. There's the green, and then I'm going to rinse, of course, because I don't want to go right into the next color unless I clean it first, right? Drag it on the edge, get all those extra drips out, and go to my next color. Wake it up so I can get a nice bright version of the color that I'm using. And crayons are made of wax, which is why the crayon doesn't go anywhere, because wax and water do not mix. The wax from the crayon will stay right where you put it, and the water will just go right over it. It's called a wax resist. Resist means go away from, so the water goes away from the wax. Just jumps right over. Okay, so there you have your 3 different versions. So we're all following the same direction, but I wanted to give some options for all the different supplies that we may have with us at home. All right, and again, if we ran into some technical problems, I'm sorry if it didn't work out, but hopefully this helped you today. And I will give you directions on how you can send this to me so I can see how they turned out. Okay? All right, I hope you had fun. Bye, guys.